in Hills about how she and her family survived.
When you first saw this damage, were you thinking, I'm so lucky to be alive that I survived?
Absolutely. And that's all you think about, is we made it.
This is Wadia Newman, a survivor, 50 years later. She was just 14 years old on April 3rd, 1974.
It was a sunny day, and I remember it being very windy. I was playing my piano at the time, and I didn't want to be interrupted.
When did you know that it was heading your house, and
well,
realized?
My mother got more frantic, and she said, get in the basement. So I went upstairs, and my blinds were closed, and I lifted the blinds up and came face to face with a tornado. I looked up at the sky right above our house, and the clouds were spiraling into the tornado, and at that point, I said, that's going to be a direct hit.
Wadia grabbed her sister Peggy and ran down the stairs into the basement.
Then there was this strange tone that happened, and it went from ooh, in the highest pitch you can imagine. It just when it hit that top note, everything blew apart.
In that moment, were you thinking, I might die?
Oh, absolutely.
Then it finally stopped.
I was in disbelief. It was like, what?
Wadia says they got their first look at the devastation. Their garage gone. One of their neighbors injured. Every home on the street was damaged or destroyed.
And went up our street and just pulverized all the houses. They were pretty much everybody lost almost everything they had.
This street holds many survival stories, from a man hunkered down in a treehouse to a pregnant woman saved from her basement. That baby will celebrate her 50th birthday this year.
This corner is that. This house was gone.
So that house was completely
Pretty much
wiped.
gone.
You
Yeah,
can't even see
it's
it.
just it was rubble.
In the middle of the destruction, Wadia says they found the piano right where she left it.
It was open to a page called Blow Winds. Didn't even know that song was in the book. That was still on the piano.
Her home was lifted up and moved 4 inches. It had to be torn down and rebuilt, a project that later inspired her future career.
We ended up doing a lot of the work, drywalling, staining. I'm an architect now.
Her nightmares faded with time, and Wadia ended up living on the street for 50 more years.
It brings back joy.
Yeah, it does. When you go through something as traumatic as this, and you come out with your life, that's all that matters. And every day is a
The spring of 1974, I was a senior at University of Louisville, living in an old duplex, old house that was a duplex on Crescent Court, and I was writing a term paper in the kitchen, Justice in Plato's Republic. My roommate was a law student, and he was reading law on the front porch, called me out on the front porch and said, look at this. And it was getting very still, it was getting dark and purple, and then we heard a very loud noise like we thought it was a train right next door. But it got more like an airplane coming in on us. And so we went to the basement immediately, and unfortunately, one of our friends, a young lady that lived upstairs, she didn't wake up right away. She had been sleeping, so David went up and got her. And within seconds, we were behind the furnace with our heads covered, and the house took a direct hit. When we went up, clothing, furniture, everything was helter-skelter. In the yard, window was out. We decided we better check on the elderly neighbors who lived around us, and my roommate David found a gentleman who needed a Band-Aid, or actually used his handkerchief to stop the bleeding on his arm. I went next door and knocked on the door. No answer. I was worried, so I knocked the window out of the front door, opened it up, and went in. There was nobody there.
And obviously this is a tornado that impacted multiple states. So many people lived through it.